Hello everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Watch my video and subscribe my channel. Nick Marone's worst fear realized as another Logan woman nearly dies on his watch. Bold and beautiful spoilers expose writers recreating Nick's 2005 drowning plot with Brooke. Ridge's brave rescue confirms Nick's fate as the perpetual scapegoat in Italy boat accident. Bold and beautiful Nick Marone gets framed again as Brooke drowns in Italy. Ridge's hero complex strikes. Another drowning, another scapegoat. The writers are doing Nick dirty. I just can't with these writers. You guys, I'm literally shivering with wrath as I read this because what they're about to do to Nick Marone is criminal. Criminal. After bringing Jack Wagner back for this epic summer plotline, promising us a sophisticated new Nick who's arrived to rescue Brooke Logan from her toxic cycle with Ridge Forrester, they're really going to throw him under the bus with the same drowning plot from 20 years ago? Let me break this down for you, since I'm still processing the pure sloth of it all. History repeats in the worst way possible. Remember 2005? When Tiny Hope Logan nearly drowned in Nick's spa because he was distracted arguing with Dante. The malfunctioning drain cover, the hair becoming entangled, the whole terrible scenario that placed Hope in a coma? Yeah. Well, clearly the writer's room has a particularly warped sense of Deja vu since they're ready to do it again. Only this time, it's Brooke who's going to be fighting for her life in the waters off Italy. Sources are informing me that throughout this full Forrester Creations fashion presentation in Naples, something goes wrong with a boat. And by wrong, I mean Brooke ends up in the sea, drowning, while Nick, who literally came back to save her from Ridge's insanity, gets all the blame. Are you kidding me? Ridge to the rescue. And here's where it gets even more predictable. While Nick is being branded as the villain who can't keep Logan women safe around water, guess who swoops in for the dramatic rescue? Ridge Forrester, Mr. Knight in shining armor himself, undoubtedly still wearing Taylor Hayes' engagement ring while he dives into those Italian waters. Because nothing screams, "I love my fiancée," like ditching her the second your ex-wife needs rescuing, right? I've seen the leaked behind-the-scenes images. Ridge jumping into the ocean, all brave and spectacular. Meanwhile, Nick, who is genuinely only trying to show Brooke there's life beyond the Forrester drama, is set to become public enemy number one. Again, the setup is so obvious it hurts. Let's talk about how convenient this all is, shall we? Nick returns after years away, looking better than ever. He's no longer the scruffy boat captain. He's leading Marone Industries, wearing beautiful suits and providing Brooke a serious alternative to her codependent disaster with Ridge. Taylor is even pushing Brooke toward Nick. Eric Forrester is Team Brooke all the way. The stage is perfectly prepared for Brooke to finally break free from this harmful routine. But no. Instead, we get Nick being blamed for a near drowning that neatly awakens Ridge's hero complex. Because, evidently, the only way Ridge knows how to show love is by dragging women out of life-threatening situations. Talk about a toxic masculinity parade. Justice for Nick Marone. Can we please talk about how unjust this is to Nick's character? The man was trying to offer Brooke something real, something wholesome. He even said his main mission was to wake her up from the lunacy of her relationship with Ridge. Jack Wagner himself revealed in interviews that Nick is unmovable now that he sees Ridge as nothing more than a fly on his shoulder. This isn't the same Nick from 2005 who was irresponsible with water. This is a savvy businessman who could certainly purchase and sell Forrester Creations twice over. But are the authors going to let him be the hero? Of course not. They need him to be the fall guy so Ridge can play Superman and Taylor can get her heart broken for the millionth time. What this really means. You know what kills me? This drowning plot isn't simply lazy writing, it's character assassination. They're actually using a 20-year-old incident to undermine whatever chance Nick has with Brooke. Because once Ridge saves her life, that whole codependent rescuer victim dynamic jumps into overdrive. Brooke will gaze at Ridge with those appreciative eyes, forgetting everything about how he just chose Taylor over her. Ridge will have his huge epiphany about how he can't live without Brooke. Taylor will be devastated. And Nick? He'll probably slink back to his shipping enterprise, depicted as the dangerous man who puts Logan ladies at jeopardy. It's so predictable. The missed opportunity. Here's what really gets me revved up. This might have been so different. Imagine if Nick actually succeeded in his objective. If Brooke woke up and thought, you know what? This, I guess, crazy. I deserve better than a man who ping-pongs between me and Taylor every other Tuesday. They could have had Nick help Brooke and Hope start their own fashion house. Logan Designs could have been the rival Forrester Creations needs. We could have had business drama instead of the same repeated love triangle. But no, we get drowning drama 2.0 instead. My prediction. Here's how this is going to go down. Brooke and Nick become close in Italy. Boat accident happens. Brooke nearly drowns as everyone blames Nick. Ridge lunges in for the save, presumably ripping off his shirt in slow motion. Brooke wakes up in Ridge's arms, forgetting Nick exists. Ridge dumps Taylor faster than you can say destiny. Nick leaves town with his reputation in shreds. And we're expected to find this romantic? Please. The show is literally telling us that Brooke can't escape her toxic relationship with Ridge, even when a perfectly good alternative is right there. They're telling us that history will always repeat itself, that Nick will always be the scapegoat, and that Ridge's hero complex is more powerful than actual healthy love. I'm fatigued just thinking about it. One last thing. To the writers, Nick Marone deserves better. The man has been vilified for one accidental drowning that wasn't even truly his fault, and now you're going to make him the villain of another water-related tragedy? What's next? Donna drowns in 2045 and Nick's ghost gets blamed? This is lazy. This is cruel. And this is exactly why fans are dissatisfied with the repeated recycling of plots. Nick came back to be the hero of this story, not the villain. But I believe in the universe of the bold and the beautiful. The only hero authorized is Ridge Forrester, even if he has to invent the crisis to save the day. Justice for Nick Marone. He deserved a fighting shot, not a rigged game where the conclusion was decided 20 years before. What do you guys think? Are you as outraged as I am about this repeated drowning plot? Let me know in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in my fury. Nick Marone returned to Italy with hope, purpose, and a sense of control he hadn't felt in decades, his confidence bolstered by years away from the storm of the Forresters, his ambition sharpened by success at Marone Industries, and his heart unexpectedly reopened by the one woman he thought he'd never risk again. Brooke Logan. The yacht glittered in the Italian sun, a fantasy of grandeur and second chances, a vehicle not just for romantic gestures, but for redemption. Yet, under the blue Mediterranean seas and gilded facade of Forrester's fashion show cruise, ancient demons awoke, drawing Nick into the undertow of a nightmare he thought long dead. The fashion show was supposed to be a statement, a triumphant return of Brooke Logan to the forefront of beauty and business, an elegant occasion to herald in a new era. Taylor Hayes had even stepped back, urging Brooke toward Nick as if surrendering the battleground. Brooke had arrived, looking radiant, the sea breeze catching her golden hair, Nick's hand warm in hers, and for the first time in years, there was no Ridge Forrester in sight. At least not on deck. Not until everything came apart. One moment, Brooke was standing at the yacht's edge, laughing at Nick's newest barb about Ridge's perpetual brooding. The next, a powerful lurch. A sudden slip. The rails were moist. The boat jolted, too forcefully, suspiciously so, and the scream that tore through the salty air was pure horror. Brooke plunged overboard. In seconds, anarchy exploded. Shouts, gasps, camera flashes. Panic. And Nick, once a man of the sea, paralyzed as the memory of Hope Logan, nearly drowning years ago, slashed through him like a razor. It was as if time collapsed, melding past and present into one endless, relentless agony. Then Ridge emerged, shirt already half undone, frantic with eagerness, leaping into the water with the performative grace of a romantic action hero. He swam to Brooke, lifting her limp body from the surf, caressing her like she was the last woman left on Earth. Onlookers erupted. "Ridge saved her," they shouted. And just like that, Nick was unimportant again. No one noticed how rapidly he moved following his initial paralysis. No one witnessed the CPR training he'd done months previously kick in, or the way he yelled commands to the crew in Italian, requesting blankets and medical gear. All they saw was Ridge, wet and sullen, gripping Brooke like she was destiny itself. But this time, it wasn't just a horrible accident, not to Nick. Not when the boat's stabilizers had been inspected the day before. Not when he'd personally handled security. And not when he spotted a wet handprint near the controls, where Ridge had been checking out the view moments ago. But who would trust Nick? The headlines were already forming. Brooke Logan nearly drowns on Nick Marone's yacht. Ridge Forrester saves the day. And in that instant, Nick recognized the game had always been rigged. No matter how far he ran, how much he built, how much better he got, he'd always be the scapegoat in a narrative built to support Ridge's imperfect heroics. Taylor looked from the upper deck, her mouth tight, her fist grasping the rail as if she wanted to toss the engagement ring Ridge handed her into the sea herself. She saw it, too, the truth of it all. Ridge wasn't a savior. He was an addict. Addicted to saving Brooke. Addicted to drama. Addicted to being the one who swoops in after catastrophe, generally destruction he produced. Nick stood soaking, terrified, his jaw stiff, his eyes fixated on Brooke's pale face as she was stretched out on a chaise in a warming blanket. Her eyes flew open. The first face she saw, Ridge. Not Nick. Never Nick. "You saved me," she muttered, and Ridge, the master manipulator of fate, nodded solemnly. And Nick, standing feet away, wasn't even a footnote in her resurrection. Hours later, the reporters descended. Statements were made. Ridge claimed the vessel wasn't secure. Nick was blamed for failing to provide adequate protection. The insurance company began probing. A gossip campaign started regarding whether Nick's yacht had been legally licensed. The Italian Coast Guard initiated an investigation. And Nick, the man who had once dominated the oceans and hearts of Los Angeles, was being demolished piece by piece in the court of public image. Ridge left Taylor in Italy the next day. No note, no goodbye, just a press conference and a flight back to L.A. With Brooke, her head on his shoulder, the old tale reborn and resurrected by water and trauma. Taylor carefully removed her ring and tossed it into the ocean as Nick watched from the deck of a separate boat, not his, exiled from the same harbor he'd hoped to claim in peace. He realized now that returning to Italy had been a mistake, not because he wasn't capable, but because he had miscalculated precisely how profoundly the program, and its writers, were dedicated to one narrative and one only. Ridge and Brooke's continuous spiral of turmoil masquerading as destiny. But Nick wasn't down. Not yet. Behind the scenes, he hired investigators. He reached out to Katie Logan, who had her own concerns about Ridge's objectives. Even Bill Spencer, of all people, hinted at foul play, not because he liked Nick, but because he despised Ridge more. Slowly, the pieces began to move. Security footage. A deleted GPS ping from Ridge's burner phone. A crew member who saw Ridge argue with the yacht mechanic the night before the disaster. And one grainy image showing Ridge loosening the safety lock near the rail. Nick hadn't just been set up. Brooke hadn't just slid. Ridge had arranged the whole event. Not to kill her, but to save her. To reclaim her. To hide Nick's redemption behind another layer of heroic legend. Nick sat in a cafe facing the bay, papers in front of him, legal documents, a blueprint of a new fashion label, Logan Designs. Hope had called him. She wants out of Forrester Creations. She craved independence. And maybe, just maybe, she sought justice for her mother. "I believe you," Hope answered simply. And with that, Nick's horror began to change, not into a dream, but a war. A business war. A reputable one. The type Ridge couldn't dive into and swim his way out of. The kind fought in headlines and legal terms, not waves. Nick Marone had been dubbed the villain of someone else's fairy tale once again. But this time he wouldn't go quietly. Because the truth was, you could only drown a man so many times before he started breathing underwater. Let me know if you want to continue this narrative with Taylor's fallout, Ridge's breakdown, or Brooke and Nick creating Logan designs, and possibly exposing Ridge's sabotage. Explosive outburst and Brooke's dramatic boat accident. Bold and the Beautiful finds Brooke Logan, Catherine Kelly Lang, falling hard, and it may be off a boat, not for the wedding proposal she's about to get. It goes down right after Ridge Forrester, Torsten K. lashes out. We're going to speak about how a future catastrophe that sparks Ridge's revelation could see Nick Marone, Jack Wagner, frantic because Brooke is in danger. Bold and the Beautiful. Nick's big romantic plans. So, this week we've got Nick planned a lovely and beautiful surprise for Brooke. Despite their not having even one date, and they haven't seen each other in a good long while, Nick wants to take Brooke out on his favorite boat and ask her to marry him. Nick says Brooke should get off this silly merry-go-round she's been on with Ridge for decades and pick his committed one-woman love instead. I think Nick is jumping at the chance to propose since, as Donna Logan, Jennifer Garais, noted, every man's in love with Brooke, even my husband. I mean, yeah, Donna's kind of a dull wit, but my jaw dropped at that exchange. Really, Donna, you're good with that? If it's true, you have to question, is Eric Forrester, John McCook, trying to live vicariously via Ridge, and that's why he wants his son back with Brooke? I found that kind of nasty and scary dialogue. That's Brad Bell for you. Bold and the Beautiful. Ridge lashes out. Brooke falls off boat, soap dirt. Bold and the Beautiful. Nick's plans go sideways. So anyhow, Nick has got a huge, beautiful rock, a stunning diamond in the box, and he's preparing how he's going to propose to Brooke. He's imagining how it's going to go, but it appears like at least a couple of things go wrong since Nick arrived to the marina where his boat is and was questioning why the mechanic was working with the steering wheel on his boat. That's a red signal of disaster that may have Brooke in serious trouble with Ridge and Nick both terrified for her life. Bold and the Beautiful. Ridge and Nick fight ahead. We also know Ridge and Nick get into a brawl this week. Seems more like a fight of words than them taking swings at each other, but we can always hope. So, we have this uncomfortable moment after the fashion show on Capri when Ridge is talking to Brooke. She constantly putting Nick in Ridge's face, practically screaming, "Dump Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig. Choose me, or I'm gonna go get with Nick." You know, it's a strategy for certain. It's salted dirt, burnt earth, ultimatum stuff. Plus, bear in mind, Ridge's anger is frazzled because Eric won't get off his back. He continues to hammer on him to dump Taylor and go with Brooke before it is too late. We've been having these ominous warnings from Eric. Brad Bell is not being subtle with this writing. Not even a little bit. Nick's romantic proposal and Brooke's torn loyalties in Bold and the Beautiful. Brooke is on her choose me shtick as Nick strolls up. Ridge tells his brother to go away and says this doesn't involve him. But instead of leaving, Nick asks Brooke to come with him, and she stares over Ridge. Brooke's looking torn, but really she's had enough. Back in Los Angeles, Taylor stood in the Forrester living room, sipping tea and adjusting to life as Ridge's fiancée. She'd ignored the indications, convinced herself that this time was different, that Ridge truly had closed the chapter on Brooke. But when her phone called and Steffi's voice came through, tense, hesitant, apologetic, her world began to tremble. "Mom, I think something happened in Italy. With Dad. And Brooke." Taylor's grip on her teacup loosened as if her fingers instinctively knew what her heart refused to accept. The engagement she grasped onto, like a lifeline, was dissolving before her eyes. And as she stood in front of the mirror marveling at the ring Ridge handed her, it shone like a lie. Meanwhile, across town, another ticking time bomb exploded. Bill Spencer, still enraged over Liam's injuries and the tangled aftermath involving Dr. Grace Buckingham, had been quietly gathering evidence. After weeks of being ridiculed for sending $1 million to a cardiac specialist for brain surgery, Dollar Bill was finally waking up. It started when Bridget Forrester sent him an anonymous tip. The MRI scans didn't match. Finn, following a hunch, reviewed Liam's chart and found something damning. A scratch under the surgical bandage that didn't correspond to any documented wound. That, along with Liam's improved health and cloudy memory, started building a disturbing picture. Grace hadn't saved Liam. She'd deceived them all.